I'm Steve Jackson, probably best known for founding Games Workshop and also writing a series of books in the 80s that have sold, I guess, about 17 million copies around the world now, the fighting fantasy books. These days, I'm Professor of Game Design at Brunel University. When we started at Games Day run by Games Workshop, we used to have a little section for computer games. This was for Commodore PET, Commodore 64, and the games were very primitive. Doesn't bear anything like this, but the whole video games industry was in its infancy. And over the years, what's that, 30 years now? 30 years, Jesus. It's all moved on so quickly. It's unbelievable where it is now. A huge industry, bigger than Hollywood. The opportunities there are these days for people who are interested in game development have come on because games, going back 30 years, games were a boy in his bedroom. And these days, when you take AAA games, they're teams of 100, 200 people working for 2 or 3 years. And even in the indie sector, they've started off as a boy in his bedroom, but these days they are teams. So the whole thing is just mushrooming. The requirements for quality, I think, are the main things, because these days an awful lot of recruitment comes and goes based on getting the best people for the job, and that's difficult to tell. That's difficult to tell certainly in programming. Graphic artists, it's easy to see. Game design. Game designer, how do you tell whether somebody's a good game designer? Well, if they've worked on a project, then you've got their history. If they're new to the business, then how are they able to persuade an employer that they're a brilliant game designer? And that's trouble. Well, there are cross-industry opportunities, of course. I mean, particularly in graphics. People who do graphics for games and do graphics for, well, we've seen the crossover from Hollywood come to the games industry now. The standard of graphics in the games is so high that it's parallel with Hollywood, Industrial Light and Magic and Pixar. Well, it used to be that all you had to do was knock on doors, and particularly knock on doors and get an opportunity in testing. So as the game comes up to crunch time, you need dozens of testers to test the game. That was an easy way of getting in. A lot of word of mouth, a lot of friends of staff, family of staff, that kind of thing. This is all going to change, though, as the industry matures even more. That we're going to have students who've got qualifications in industry skills. I think that's going to be very important in the future. Look what's happened in the last 18 months. We've seen things move from a concentration on AAA games to moving out to phones, to small devices, to the indie sector, to Xbox Live, PSN. The opportunity, that just the breadth of different media and different devices is huge. Now that will continue to spread. We've got things like even the Amazon Kindle, which is an e-book reader, is a gaming device. Unbelievable. But we'll see more new devices coming out and games being used, as they have been with some of these devices, as the major attraction of it.